She had just stepped down from the stage, the ballroom still bright with glass, diamonds, and people who only ever came close to power when a camera was nearby. Her speech had landed the way her speeches always did. Clean. Sharp. No wasted words. Applause rolled through the room. Donors moved in. Board members began their usual circling, and a waiter passed with fresh champagne. Amanda took a glass. 30 seconds later, she looked at me across the room, and every instinct I had went hard. Not because she looked careless. Amanda never looked careless. That was the problem. Her focus slipped for half a second, like the room had tilted under her. She reached for the edge of a cocktail table, caught herself, then straightened too fast. To anybody else, it might have looked like fatigue after a long night. To me, it looked wrong. I moved before she could fall into someone else's hands. Enough for tonight, I said quietly when I reached her side. Her eyes found mine, clear for 1 second, unfocused the next. I'm fine. No, you're not. A board member was already heading toward us with that fake expression people wear when they smell weakness and want to call it concern. Across the ballroom, near the entrance, I caught the flash of a long lens turning our direction. Not press. Not event photography either. Too still. Too patient. That was when I stopped thinking in possibilities and started thinking in routes. I put one hand lightly at the small of her back. To anyone watching, it looked practiced and polite. It was neither. It was control. We're leaving. Her jaw tightened. Even like this, she hated being managed. Nolan. Now. Something in my voice got through. She gave the smallest nod. I guided her past donors, past the glass staircase, past 2 senior vice presidents pretending not to watch us. One of them, Martin Kessler, lifted his phone a little too slowly after seeing me move her out. Not texting. Signaling. I filed that away. The private corridor behind the ballroom was empty except for one security guard who knew better than to ask questions when I used that face. The elevator opened on my badge. Amanda leaned against the mirrored wall the second the doors closed. What was in that glass? I asked. She blinked hard. I had 1 sip. That wasn't my question. Her breathing had gone uneven, not panicked, just wrong. Controlled on the surface, unstable underneath. She looked furious that her own body wasn't listening. I don't know, she said. I believed her. When the elevator opened to the garage level, my driver was already moving the car into position. Then I saw the black SUV idling 3 rows over with no lights on, and 2 men inside pretending to look anywhere else. Maybe media. Maybe worse. Either way, I wasn't taking her home. Change, I told the driver. Tower. He looked back once in surprise, then nodded. Amanda turned her head toward me. No staff floor. Exactly. The ride across the river took 11 minutes. Chicago glittered outside the windows like nothing bad ever happened in expensive parts of the city. Inside the car, Amanda sat rigid beside me, one hand pressed against the leather seat, breathing through whatever had been slipped into her system. Twice she tried to pull her phone out. Twice I took it from her and put it back in my pocket. You're making enemies tonight, she murmured. I'm narrowing the list. That almost got a smile out of her. Almost. McBeal Biodyne's research tower rose over the river in dark glass and steel, mostly empty at that hour except for restricted labs and overnight operations. I bypassed the main lobby, took her through the service entrance, and brought her to level 38, an executive operations floor that officially existed for crisis management and unofficially existed because I trusted almost no one. The doors sealed behind us. Only then did I let myself breathe. We were safe for now, but the real fight was just beginning. If you're enjoying the tension, please like and subscribe. I got her into the private conference suite, killed the overhead lights, pulled emergency med supplies from the wall cabinet, and called in one physician from our internal clinical unit who owed loyalty to Amanda, not the board. No names over open channels. No digital trail beyond what I could scrub later. While we waited, I loosened her heels, set water beside her, and checked her pupils with the small pen light I kept in my pocket. She slapped my hand away on reflex. Still difficult, I said. Still arrogant, she muttered. Better. If she could argue, she was still with me. The physician arrived in 12 minutes, ran a quiet exam, drew blood, and gave me the kind of look doctors reserve for people they trust with ugly truths. Something was used, she said. Not enough to put her down. Enough to impair judgment, balance, speech. In public, it would have looked very bad. That had always been the point. After Amanda drifted into a shallow, restless sleep on the suite sofa, I walked into the operations room next door and woke every system on the wall. Event cameras, access logs, staff movement, catering records, elevator histories, parking data, deleted message recovery. At 1:14 a.m., I found the first crack. Ballroom West Service Station. Camera 12. Amanda's champagne glass waiting on a silver tray for exactly 4 seconds before Martin Kessler stepped into frame, blocked the view with his body, and moved away with the wrong hand empty. I froze the frame, zoomed in, and felt my entire night turn cold. Because Martin Kessler wasn't acting alone. At the edge of the shot, just beyond him, stood Adrian Parker, Chief Financial Officer, watching the room like a man timing a market move. And suddenly the charity event, the cameras, the board vote in the morning, all of it lined up into one clean shape. This was never about embarrassing her. This was a removal. She woke up angry, which was how I knew she was really back. Not fully. Her voice still had that slight delay behind it, and when she pushed herself up from the sofa in the executive suite, she had to stop halfway and steady herself with one hand against the cushion. But the look in her eyes was clear now, cold and sharp, and already looking for the nearest weak point to break. How bad? She asked. I was at the operations table with 3 screens open and a legal pad full of times, names, and movements from the event. I turned one monitor toward her, but stayed where I was. Bad enough that somebody planned it, I said. Not bad enough that they finished the job. Her mouth tightened at that. Show me. Most people said that, and meant tell me something comforting first. Amanda meant exactly what she said. So I did. I showed her Martin Kessler stepping into frame near the champagne station. I showed her the moment his body blocked the tray from camera 12. Then I froze the next angle from camera 14, where his hand came away just a fraction too carefully. Not obvious to anyone who did not know what they were looking for. Obvious to me. Obvious to her. Amanda stared at the screen for 3 seconds without blinking. Martin is sloppy under pressure, she said quietly. He always has been. He over-explains when he lies. He wasn't the only one there. I tapped a key and brought up the wider shot. Adrian Parker stood near the donor wall, half-turned, watching the room instead of participating in it. That got a reaction. Not dramatic. Just stillness. With Amanda, that was worse. Of course, she said. I looked back at her. You already had a theory. I had a board vote in 8 hours, a blocked acquisition, and 2 men who have been smiling too carefully at me for 3 weeks. She stood too fast. I was beside her before she lost balance. I said I'm fine. You're vertical. That's not the same thing. For a second we were too close, my hand around her forearm, her breath still uneven from whatever had been slipped into her drink. The room went very quiet. It had been like this with us for months, maybe longer. Too many late nights. Too many private elevators. Too many moments where one of us should have stepped back and neither did. Then she looked down at my hand. I let go first. Tell me the rest, she said. I walked her through it piece by piece. The board had been scheduled to review emergency leadership authority if there was any sign she was impaired or unable to perform. The language had existed for years, buried in governance rules no one expected to use. Adrian had pushed to update it last quarter. Martin had handled event operations tonight. There were 2 freelance photographers on the guest perimeter who were not on the approved vendor list. One black SUV had tailed us out of the venue garage before dropping off when I switched routes. Amanda listened without interrupting, one hand braced on the back of a chair. So this wasn't about embarrassment, she said. It was about temporary removal. Yes. Temporary becomes permanent once the vote shifts. Yes. Her gaze lifted to mine. And you knew not to take me home. I knew home was the first place they'd expect. That landed harder than I meant it to. Something changed in her expression then. Not softness. Amanda McBeal did not do softness when the building was on fire. But something more personal. More direct. How long? She asked. Have you been building backup routes around me that I don't know about? I should have lied. Instead, I told the truth. Since your first 6 months as CEO, I've been protecting her since day one, even when she didn't know it. Would you stay that loyal to someone who didn't even notice your help? Let me know in the comments. She gave one short breath that might have been disbelief. That long. You run a company full of brilliant people and half of them want your chair. I prefer preparation. No, she said, still watching me. You prefer me still standing. That one got through my control in a way I did not like. Before I could answer, a warning banner flashed red across the center monitor. Remote access conflict. Archive index modified. I crossed the room in 2 steps and started pulling up the audit trail. Someone was inside the security system right now, not live camera access, but archive management. They were scrubbing. Fast. Amanda moved to my side. Can you stop it? I can slow it down. I opened the mirrored storage map and felt my pulse kick higher. They're not going after the event server. They're going after the backup index. Meaning this was planned well enough to account for me. That made both of us go silent. I split the screens and started isolating copies before the deletion cascade spread. Amanda leaned one hand on the desk beside me and read over my shoulder, following the names, timestamps, and override attempts without asking for translation. Then she said, very calm, "Tell me what you need." I glanced at her. "You should sit down." "No, you're still recovering. And you are not doing this alone." There it was again. That line shifting. Not boss and fixer. Not tonight. I handed her my phone. "Call Camila Ruiz in internal compliance. Voice only. No text. Tell her to come to tower level 38 and bring offline board packets from Legal Archive B. Do not explain why." She took the phone, but before she turned away, she looked at me for 1 second too long. "You came back for me without even thinking," she said quietly. There was nothing to think about. That was the truth. Maybe too much of it. She stepped closer instead of away. Close enough that I could see the strain in her face, the fury, the exhaustion, and something else under all of it that had been there for longer than either of us had admitted. When she kissed me, it was not uncertain and it was not careless. It was brief, direct, and real enough to knock every clean professional line in my head half an inch off center. Then she pulled back first. "We deal with that later," she said. A second red warning hit the screen. Archive deletion in progress. And just like that, whatever had shifted between us had to stand up inside the war with everything else. I didn't answer her. There wasn't room for it. The delete sequence was moving across mirrored storage now, jumping from event archive to backup index to access control snapshots. Whoever was doing it knew exactly which layers mattered and exactly how long they had before the board started assembling upstairs. I pulled the emergency isolation key from the console drawer and killed the live sync between the main archive and the secondary stack. The room went dark for half a second. Then the backup wall came back in segmented blocks. Amanda was still beside me, one hand flat against the desk, breathing steadier now, all the fog from earlier burned off by anger and purpose. "Tell me we didn't just lose it," she said. "We lost convenience," I said. "Not the evidence." I opened the local failover map. McBeal Biodine kept its clean public systems in one place and its ugly survival systems in another. Most executives never even knew the second layer existed. I designed part of it that way. "There's an offline mirror 2 floors down," I said. "Physical access only. If the backup controller hasn't been touched, we can still pull the raw logs before they finish wiping the top layer." Then why are we still here? That was Amanda. Half the city thought her power came from board votes and media profiles. It didn't. It came from that. From the fact that once she saw the line between attack and response, she moved. We took the private stairwell instead of the elevator. I keyed the security lock manually and kept her behind me on the descent, not because she couldn't handle herself, but because I no longer trusted the building to belong entirely to us. Level 36 was colder, quieter, built more like a bunker than an executive floor. Server cabinets lined both sides of the corridor behind reinforced glass. No polished wood. No donor art. Just steel, humming air, and systems that mattered more than appearances. Camila Ruiz met us at the inner door, hair still pinned from whatever she had been dragged out of, a legal archive case in one hand and a tablet in the other. "You sounded calm," she said to Amanda. "I hate when you sound calm." "Save it," Amanda said. "Who's touched the overnight board packet?" Camila handed me the tablet. Adrian's office requested a revised leadership contingency memo at 12:42 a.m. Legal didn't authorize it. Someone pushed it through under emergency formatting. "Of course they did," I said. I opened the vault cabinet and slid out the offline control unit. Manual boots took longer, but they left fingerprints. Real ones. Badge hits, door access, system overrides, internal routing. Everything the polished version of the company preferred not to advertise. While the drives initialized, Amanda stood across from me under the hard white lights, not looking like a woman recovering from a setup, looking like a commander deciding where to strike back. You built this too, she said. I built options. For me. I met her eyes. For the company. She gave me a look that made it clear she knew exactly when I was hiding behind wording. The first files populated. Event service access. Catering corridor cameras. Door logs from Ballroom West. I ran the timeline against the guest movement map and got the clean hit almost immediately. Martin Kessler accessed the service prep room 6 minutes before Amanda's speech using a facilities badge that should never have been in his possession. Camila leaned in. That badge belongs to Megan Nicholson in Event Logistics. Where is she? Amanda asked. Camila checked her tablet. Not answering. Phone inactive since 11:18. I kept moving. The second poll gave us internal messages recovered from the deleted queue. Most were fragmented, but one survived in full because the sender had routed it through finance retention before deleting the visible thread. From Adrian Parker to Martin Kessler. She only needs to look unstable for 10 minutes. The rest will take care of itself. The room went silent. Camila was the first to speak. That's enough to bury them. Not if they control the opening narrative, I said. Not if they get in front of the board first and frame everything as concern. Amanda took the tablet from my hand and read the message herself. No expression. That was always when she was most dangerous. Print everything, she said to Camila. Hard copies only. 3 sets. Camila nodded and moved. I kept pulling. Access logs. Vehicle records. A request to add 2 outside photographers to perimeter clearance under a false vendor tag. A garage camera clip showing the black SUV entering through executive service lanes. Then the final piece, an audio note attached to Adrian's contingency memo, meant for Martin, not the board. He sounds impatient in it. Annoyed. Certain. If she stumbles, we move before noon. Once McBeal is out, the Helix acquisition clears, and we hold the vote under interim authority. There it was. Motive, timing, plan. Not rumor. Not theory. Structure. Amanda set the tablet down very carefully. They were ready to take my company while I was still in the room, she said. They thought they were taking your company because you were in the room, I said. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for a second everything else dropped away. The towers, the board, the screens, the years of distance dressed up as professionalism. They were wrong, she said. Yes. Camila came back with the printed packets clipped and sealed. Board assistants are already arriving upstairs. Adrian's in conference prep. Martin's with him. I checked the time. Not much left. This was the moment where I should have done what I had always done. Put the evidence in her hands, shape the room from outside, stay invisible while she won in public. Amanda must have seen that calculation on my face. No, she said. I looked at her. You don't know what I was about to say? I do. She stepped closer, voice low and absolute. You are not disappearing behind me this time. Camila had the good sense to look away. This will get ugly, I said. It already is. If I stand beside you in there, there's no putting distance back. Her expression changed then. Not softer. Just true. I'm not asking for distance back. That landed deeper than the kiss had. I took one of the evidence packets, slipped the drive into my inside pocket, and finally stopped pretending my job ended at the edge of her shadow. Then we do it together, I said. Amanda nodded once, the way she did when a decision became final. We left level 36 side by side, carrying enough proof to break 2 careers and stop a takeover in the same hour. And by the time the elevator started rising toward the boardroom, we both knew the next doors were going to open into a fight neither of us planned to lose. By the time we reached the boardroom, Adrian Parker had already started without her. That told me everything. The long glass wall overlooking the river was still dark with early morning, Chicago just starting to turn gray beyond it. Around the table sat 9 board members, 2 legal advisors, Martin Kessler, Adrian, and 3 assistants pretending not to look nervous. On the main display was a still image from the charity event. Amanda, slightly off balance, turning away from the cameras, cropped tight enough to suggest whatever story they wanted. Adrian looked up first. He had the expression of a man performing concern for people rich enough to mistake it for leadership. Amanda, he said carefully, we were just discussing whether this meeting should be postponed. Amanda walked in like she owned the floor, the walls, and the air in the room. Which she did. No, she said. You were discussing whether I could be removed before lunch. That landed hard. Martin tried to recover it with a sad little shake of his head. This isn't personal. There were concerns about your condition last night, and the board has a duty to consider stability. I stayed half a step behind her until she reached the head of the table. Then I moved to her right and put the evidence packet down in full view of everyone. A small move. Very loud. Adrian noticed it immediately. Nolan, perhaps you should let counsel handle materials. No, Amanda said without looking at him. He'll handle them. That changed the room more than the packet did. For years I had been the man who prepared her meetings, closed her doors, and made problems vanish before other people knew they existed. Most of them had never heard me say more than 10 words in a board session. Watching me stand there beside her instead of behind the chairs made several of them sit straighter. Adrian saw it too, and for the first time, something in his expression slipped. He pushed anyway. Men like him always did. The optics from last night are already circulating, he said. Whether there was exhaustion, impaired judgment, or some other issue, the responsible thing may be a temporary delegation of authority until... Finish that sentence, Amanda said. He didn't. Good. That made it easier. I clicked the table control, and the image on the screen vanished. In its place came the ballroom service corridor, time-stamped and clean. This is camera 12 from last night's event, I said. It shows Martin Kessler approaching a service tray reserved for MS McBeal 6 minutes before her final donor round. Martin gave a short laugh that was supposed to sound amused. You're showing security angles at a board meeting now. Only the useful ones. I advanced the clip. Martin stepped into frame, blocked the tray, and moved away. One board member leaned forward. Another reached for the printed packet in front of him. Martin spoke too fast. That proves nothing. Correct, I said. By itself. I switched to the next angle. Then the badge log. Then the service room entry showing he had used a facility's credential assigned to event logistics, not executive management. Then the request clearing 2 unapproved photographers into perimeter access. Then the garage clip with the SUV idling in executive lanes. The room changed in stages. That was the part people misunderstand about power. It rarely flips all at once. It turns one face at a time. Adrian tried to interrupt when I brought up the deleted message recovery. I kept going. On the screen appeared the line he had sent Martin. She only needs to look unstable for 10 minutes. The rest will take care of itself. No one said anything after that. They just read it. Amanda did not move. She let them sit in it. Then Adrian found one last move and made it. This could be fabricated, he said, but now there was strain in it. Pulled out of context. I think we should hear from outside forensic review before drawing. I dropped the audio file into the room. His own voice came through the speakers. Irritated. Certain. Calm in the way guilty people are when they think the win is already secured. If she stumbles, we move before noon. Once McBeal is out, the Helix acquisition clears, and we hold the vote under interim authority. That was the end of them. Not dramatically. Not with shouting. Worse. Martin stopped trying to talk. Adrian went pale and looked around the table like somebody might still save him if he used the right tone. No one did. One board member removed his glasses and set them down with visible care. Another closed the contingency memo in front of him like it had become something dirty. Amanda finally spoke. You were prepared to call me unstable, she said. You were prepared to use a manufactured public incident to strip authority from the person who built this company, override my position on the Helix deal, and force a transfer of control before the market opened. If anyone in this room still believes this is a misunderstanding, say it now. No one did. The chair of the board cleared his throat. Martin Kessler and Adrian Parker are suspended effective immediately pending formal termination review and referral to outside counsel. Do that, Amanda said, and kill the Helix agenda item permanently. He nodded. Just like that. The board had turned. Security arrived 2 minutes later. Quiet, professional, careful not to touch either man until the chair made it official. Martin wouldn't look at Amanda. Adrian did, but only once. There was hate in it. Yes, but worse than that, disbelief. Men like him could imagine losing money. They had a much harder time imagining losing the story they told about who was supposed to control the room. Then they were gone. The meeting broke in fragments after that. Advisors rushed into procedure. Board members suddenly remembered they had always supported Amanda's leadership. Assistants gathered papers with trembling hands. The whole machine started rearranging itself around the new truth. I stayed where I was until the room emptied. When the doors finally closed, silence settled in for the first time since the ballroom. Amanda exhaled slowly and looked at me across the head of the table. No audience now. No performance left to maintain. You changed the room, she said. No, I said. I just gave them the truth before he could sell them something else. A small smile touched her mouth. Tired. Real. Then she walked toward me, stopping close enough that all the polished distance we had carried for years felt stupid. I spent a long time telling myself you were safest in the shadows, she said. That if I wanted to keep what mattered, I had to keep it separate from everything public. I didn't say anything. I already knew this was the moment everything changed. She reached for my hand, and even after the night we had just survived, that simple contact hit harder than the boardroom did. I'm done doing that, she said. With the company. With you. My control had held through a setup, a recovery, a data war, and a room full of people waiting for her to break. It did not hold through that. I pulled her in and kissed her the way I should have months ago, maybe longer. No hesitation left. No careful excuses. Just the truth, finally allowed into the open. When we parted, her forehead rested briefly against mine. Chief of Staff, I said. Her eyes lifted. Officially, yes. And unofficially? She smiled then, fully this time, the kind of smile almost nobody ever got from her. The man beside me, she said. That was enough. So when the first light finally pushed across the river and into the boardroom glass, it found her exactly where she belonged, still in control of everything they tried to take, and found me no longer standing behind her chair, but next to her, where I should have been all along.